Cinderella Reborn, the final battle between fire and shadow epic fairy tale retelling. Chapter 1. The Girl Who Smelled of Ashes. Before she became a princess, who was she? Not a helpless girl waiting for a prince to save her. Not someone lucky enough to receive magic. But a girl who rose step by step from the ashes. Long ago, in a land where wheat fields swayed golden in the wind, there lived a young girl in a shabby wooden house at the edge of the forest. People called her Cinderella because every day she was covered in soot and ash. Her dress was patched, her hands calloused, her eyes tired but strangely bright. No one knew her real name. No one remembered the last time she smiled. But everyone said, "That girl, she sure knows how to survive." She once had a father, a cloth merchant with a sack always slung over his back, and a wooden cane tapping in rhythm whenever he told stories to his daughter. "My child, you are the light in the cinders," he used to say. Then one day he left on a trade journey and never returned. And from that moment, the ashes began to settle on her life. A stepmother came along with 2 daughters. At first there were smiles. Then came the orders. And then years of silence. She was not allowed to sit at the table. Not allowed to keep anything but an old dress. Not allowed to call anyone family. They laughed when she stumbled, yawned lazily while she rose before dawn to light the fire. And when visitors came, they hid her behind the stable door. But she no longer cried, because crying changed nothing. Instead, she listened to the wind on the roof, to the birds each morning, and to the quiet voice inside her, "I'm still alive." One night as she lit the fire, the flame flickered across her soot-streaked face. And in that firelight she heard something strange. A royal announcement echoed across the kingdom. The prince was holding a ball to find someone worthy. The stepmother and her daughters shrieked, jumped with excitement. "I'll be the one he chooses." "No, me." "And her?" She simply smiled, but it was a smile full of mystery. She didn't dream of marrying a prince. She only wanted to see the world beyond these walls, to know if there were others like her, those who had to rise by themselves, who faced injustice, but refused to let it consume them. On the day of the ball, they left in shimmering gowns. She stood by the door's crack. A drop of rain fell. A quiet sigh escaped her lips. The sky darkened. A cold wind swept through the garden. And from behind the apple tree her father once planted, a voice rose. "If you truly want to go, close your eyes." She did, without doubt, without fear. And then something strange happened. Not a fairy, not glittering magic, but memory. Scraps of cloth her father left turned into a gown of silver silk. The little shoes he once brought became glass slippers. And in the wind, she heard his whisper, "You don't have to be like anyone else. Just be yourself." She stepped through the gate. With each step, the world seemed to fall silent in awe. No more ashes. No more mocking glances. Only a girl, unfamiliar, powerful, beginning to rewrite her destiny. And inside the grand palace, eyes were waiting. A heart was beating faster than ever before. And fate, was holding its breath, awaiting a miracle. If you believe every soul holds the power to rise above fate, like, subscribe and get ready for Chapter 2, A Dance with Destiny. We'll walk forward with Cinderella through the untold story. Chapter 2, A Dance with Destiny. The carriage wheels turned along the cobblestone path leading to the royal palace, moonlight casting a silvery glow over the thin mist, making the entire scene appear dreamlike. Inside the mysterious carriage, Cinderella sat with her hands resting on her shimmering gown, which sparkled as if woven with thousands of tiny stars. With each heartbeat, questions arose. Should I truly go there? Do I deserve this? Yet, a gentle voice echoed in her mind. If you don't step into your own world, who will do it for you? The palace gates opened. From the balcony, melodious music flowed, each note drawing lost souls closer together. The ballroom shimmered with crystal chandeliers, and nobles adorned in elegant attire concealed their emotions behind ornate masks. As Cinderella entered, the room seemed to pause for a heartbeat. She wore no crown, had no escort, yet each of her steps seemed to expand the space around her. Silent, free, and full of inner strength. At the far end of the room stood the prince, a young man with a distant gaze. Many beautiful women had approached him, but his heart remained untouched, as if waiting for something he couldn't name. Then, as Cinderella stepped onto the marble floor, he saw her. Their eyes met, no words, no promises. But that was enough for destiny to begin writing its next chapter. "Good evening," the prince said softly, his voice deep and warm. Cinderella bowed slightly, smiling. "You're not wearing a mask. I don't need to hide before someone I truly wish to see." The music began. He extended his hand. She placed hers into it, slightly trembling, yet resolute. They stepped into the dance. No one knew who she was. No one knew what he was thinking. But each of their steps harmonized as if rehearsed in a previous life. She spoke not of pain. He inquired not about the past. They simply listened to each other's heartbeats, to the meaningful silence. The stepmother and two stepsisters stood near the banquet table, unaware of who the dancing girl was. "Perhaps a princess from the north," one whispered. "Or a noble lady from some aristocratic family," the other speculated. Only one person sensed something unusual. An elderly servant who had once seen a little girl tending the hearth amidst the ashes. He looked at her and nodded gently, not speaking, just sending a silent blessing. But time waits for no one. As the clock began to strike 12, Cinderella felt something changing. The magic was fading. The glass slipper grew cold. The silver gown became translucent. She looked at the prince, eyes filled with regret. "I must go. Wait, I don't know your name. We'll meet again, if destiny wills it." She ran. Each stair seemed endless. One slipper slipped off. She didn't look back. Only the wind carried an unspoken promise. The prince chased after, but it was too late. Only the glass slipper remained. And the question echoed in his mind. Who is she? In a quiet corner where the city still slept, A girl sat by the hearth, clutching the remaining slipper in her hand. She didn't know, fate had just begun to shift. Meanwhile, in the palace, the prince vowed to find her, at any cost. Do you believe that destiny doesn't overlook the sincere? Like, subscribe and stay tuned for Chapter 3, The Glass Slipper and the Promise in the Wind. The most extraordinary search in the kingdom is about to begin. Chapter 3, The Glass Slipper and a Whisper in the Wind. At the first light of dawn after the royal ball, the palace still shimmered with a magical afterglow. No one could forget the girl in the starlit gown. And no one knew where she came from. The prince, once indifferent to countless beauties, now sat in a daze, gazing at the tiny glass slipper. It was impossibly delicate, as if forged from moonlight and morning dew. "I must find her," the prince whispered, eyes fixed on the slipper. "No matter who she is or where she's from. I will know her, because my heart has already chosen." That very day, a royal decree was issued. Every maiden in the kingdom, without exception, must try on the glass slipper. The one it fits shall become the princess. And so the search began. Every land, every village, every home, every footstep carried both hope and ambition. The news reached the edge of the forest, where Cinderella lived with her stepmother and 2 stepsisters. "That slipper, it must belong to a princess," said the eldest sister, smearing on thick rouge. "Or some noble lady the prince lost his mind over," added the second, trying to force her foot into an already too tight heel. The stepmothers smiled with sly intent. "We will be ready. We cannot fail. And Cinderella, stay in the kitchen. This has nothing to do with someone like you." In the kitchen, Cinderella sat quietly. The other slipper was hidden beneath a cloth of ashes. Each night, she would look at it like a fading dream. She held no hope. She only wished for one thing, to remember that moment, that dance, that gaze. Even if just once in her life. At last, the royal knights arrived. The pounding of hooves echoed through the woods, sending waves of panic and excitement through the household. The door burst open. A soldier lifted a glass case high, the slipper gleaming within. One by one, the girls were invited to try it on. The eldest sister grimaced. The second dripped with sweat. Both struggled to squeeze into the tiny slipper, in vain. The prince stepped in, his eyes worn by too much disappointment. He was about to leave when, from beneath the stairs, a soft voice spoke. "Excuse me, but what about me?" The room froze. The stepmother paled. The 2 sisters stared, speechless. Cinderella emerged, no silks, no jewels. Just herself, with eyes gentle yet resolute. In her hand was the other slipper. "I believe this is its pair." The soldier looked to the prince. The prince said nothing. He stepped forward and knelt before the small girl. Silence fell. She placed her foot into the slipper. A perfect fit. Not a single gap. The prince looked up. "It's you," he whispered. "I've danced with many, but only you left me speechless without a word. You are the princess in my heart, no matter where you came from." The stepmother screamed, "No!" She's just a servant. She's not worthy. The prince turned, his voice firm. Birth does not define one's worth. A true princess is made of heart and virtue. Cinderella was invited to the palace. The story seemed to have ended, but fate had only begun its weave. A hidden past. A curse yet unbroken. A secret flowing in the bloodline, waiting to be revealed. Did you think all fairy tales end with a wedding? Stay tuned for Chapter 4, Secrets Behind the Velvet Curtain, where Cinderella must face the greatest challenge of her life. Like, subscribe, and share to follow her journey. Chapter 4. The Secret Behind the Velvet Curtain. Cinderella now lived in the palace. No more ashes, no more scolding voices. Every morning, she awoke in a golden chamber, served like a true lady. But her heart was not at peace. Not because of the luxury. Not because of her stepmother or her stepsisters. But because of a strange dream that returned every night. In the dream, she saw a pitch-black forest. A whispering voice called out, "Daughter of the moonlight, the secret has yet to be revealed. Return to the beginning." She woke up with cold hands. That voice echoed in her mind, like a warning. The wedding day was drawing near. The entire kingdom prepared for the grand celebration. The prince never left her side. Yet deep inside, something felt wrong. One evening, while walking through the garden behind the palace, she encountered an old beggar woman. The woman asked for nothing, only looked at her with eyes as deep as an ancient lake. "I've waited for you for a long time," the woman said softly. "Do you know who allowed you to dance in a gown of stars? Who turned pumpkins into carriages? Who paused time so you could walk like a princess?" Cinderella held her breath. "The fairy godmother?" she asked. The old woman nodded. "But that's just the surface. Who you are, that's the real question." She pulled out an old velvet cloth, embroidered with a crescent moon and a strange symbol. "This belonged to your mother, the last matriarch of the Saloon bloodline." Saloon. Cinderella had never heard the name. A bloodline of women born from moonlight, able to see what others cannot, able to connect with ancient magic, a magic that only awakens in a pure heart. Cinderella took a step back. "I'm just a girl who was cast aside. I'm nothing special." The old woman smiled. "It's precisely because you never thought yourself special that magic chose you. But every miracle has a price. It always demands a choice." That night, in the prince's study, Cinderella opened an old book forgotten on a shelf. Its cover bore the same symbol as the velvet cloth. Inside, it told the story of a people erased from royal records because they held a power kings feared, the power to see the truth, even truths hidden behind the throne. And her mother had been one of them. Memories surged back. Nights when her mother held her close by the fire. Songs about the moon, about a mirror that speaks, about the daughter of light who shall awaken when ashes touch gold. Her mother hadn't died of illness. She was taken by those who now lived in the palace. Now Cinderella stood at a crossroads. To become a princess and live the dream, but bury the truth. Or uncover the hidden past and awaken the power in her blood, even if it meant standing against the royal family. Behind the palace lights, a political game had long been unfolding. Did you think Cinderella was just a lucky girl with a shoe? Stay tuned for Chapter 5, Blood of the Moonlight, where Cinderella steps into her true destiny. Like, share, and follow to journey with us into the most mysterious part of the tale. Chapter 5, Blood of the Moonlight. That night, Cinderella stood alone in her royal bedroom. Moonlight streamed through the window, gentle but cold. On the table lay the ancient book, the embroidered silk cloth, and a fear growing deep in her chest. No one knew, but she had made her decision. The next morning, Cinderella asked the prince for permission to visit her old home a few days before the wedding. He hesitated but agreed, thinking she simply wanted to say goodbye to her past. But she knew the truth. She wasn't going back to say farewell. She was going back to find the truth. The old house stood quiet, untouched by time. The fireplace was full of cold ashes, the clock hands broken, the bedroom icy and still. But in the attic, where her mother once sewed under the moonlight, there remained a locked chest. She retrieved the key hidden beneath the 7th brick. The place her mother once whispered, "Open it only when you're brave enough to learn who you are." The chest creaked open. Inside, a small mirror with a silver crescent moon frame, and a handwritten letter. "My daughter, if you're reading this, it means you have walked through the darkness. The blood within you is not just sorrow, but light, the light to see the truth even when it hides behind a crown." Cinderella picked up the mirror. For a fleeting moment, her reflection disappeared, and in its place, her mother appeared. Imprisoned in a deep dungeon, her eyes still ablaze with strength. Beside her, her fairy godmother, collapsed and shackled. The mirror slipped from her hand. This wasn't magic. This wasn't a fairy tale. It was real. The fairy godmother hadn't vanished. She had been captured. Her mother, the last of the Saloon bloodline, had been imprisoned to keep the royal secret buried. Now Cinderella understood. The ball, the dress, the glass slipper. It was all a trap. A mere peasant could never walk into a palace so easily. The royal family knew who she was, and they wanted to control her before her awakening was complete. That night, she returned to the palace, not in a wedding dress. She wore her mother's cloak, silver as moonlight. Mirror in hand, her heart ablaze. In the grand hall, the prince waited. She approached him, but did not take his hand. "I have one question," she said, voice steady. "Before I give you my fate." The hall fell silent. "What did you do to my mother, the last of the Saloon bloodline? And the fairy godmother, the one who gave me hope, where is she now?" The king rose to his feet, face pale as snow. "Please, don't go further," the prince whispered. "You don't understand." "No," Cinderella replied. "You understand exactly who I am. And that's why you fear the truth." She raised the mirror. Light burst forth, sweeping across the hall, and the people saw. They saw her mother chained in darkness. They saw the godmother trapped in a magic prison. They saw the king years younger, ordering the saloon clan erased from history. Truth could no longer be hidden. The fairy tale was shattered. Cinderella was no longer the girl seeking love. She was the bearer of light, destined to awaken justice within the dark palace walls. But would she be strong enough? And who would stand with her when the kingdom prepared to punish the daughter of the moon? Did you think Cinderella only needed to marry the prince to be happy? Don't miss Chapter 6, Uprising in the Shadows, when the princess refuses silence and moonlight strikes back. Like, subscribe to Storylish English, and share this tale to help us write the next chapter of a brand new legend. Chapter 6, Rebellion in the Darkness. A cold wind swept through the great hall. The mirror in Cinderella's hands still shone brightly, the moonlight from the high dome casting down like a witness from the heavens. The entire royal family and guests fell silent. No one dared utter a word. The girl in the silver moonlit gown was no longer the Cinderella, who once cleaned floors by the hearth. She was the heir of the moonblood, the last one who could break the curse that had hung over the kingdom for centuries. "Seize her," the king's voice thundered. Immediately, the guards rushed forward. But something unexpected happened. The light from the mirror spread like a wildfire. The guards halted. Some fell to the ground clutching their heads, as if waking from a long dream. "Remember now," a guard stammered. "I once saw the woman in the mirror. She saved my village from drought. And then we all forgot." Cinderella looked around. Memories sealed deep within the minds of many began to shatter like cracked glass. The prince, standing on the dais, trembled. "All my life I was taught to trust the law, the throne. But if that means betraying the truth, I choose my heart," he whispered. And then he stepped down and stood beside Cinderella. The rebellion had begun. Not with bloodshed, but with awakening. The people gathered before the palace as the light from the mirror shone outward. The elders recalled lullabies of saloon giving light. Children painted moons on their foreheads and ran shouting, "Cinderella is not a princess, she is the warrior of the light." The king, trembling, retreated to the throne room where the forbidden book containing the buried history was kept. But it was too late. Cinderella had arrived. In the dark chamber, she faced him, the man who had ordered the poisoning of her mother, imprisoned the fairy godmother, and ruled the kingdom with the sweet darkness of deceitful fairy tales. "Do you think light is weakness?" Cinderella asked, her eyes blazing. "No," the king sneered, "but light never wins without knowing how to wield darkness." He drew a black sword, forged from obsidian, the weapon that had slain many saloon descendants. But before he could strike, the mirror exploded into thousands of shards of light, swirling around Cinderella like living moon fragments. The blast rang out. When the dust settled, the king collapsed. On his forehead appeared a faint moon mark, then vanished. The truth had been restored. But this was only the beginning. While the people celebrated and the kingdom lit candles under the moon, Cinderella silently descended to the palace dungeons. An ancient stone door sealed for centuries began to creak open. Behind it, her mother awaited. and beside her an even greater secret, where moonlight could not reach. Cinderella had awakened. The kingdom had awakened. But the final dungeon, holding the soul of an ancient darkness that had manipulated the dynasty for hundreds of years, remained. And only she, the last bearer of the Saloon bloodline, had the power to either unleash it or seal it forever. Have you ever thought happily ever after was the end? For Cinderella, it was just the beginning of a sacred battle. Stay tuned for Chapter 7, Blood Oath Beneath the Darkness, where light confronts the darkest essence in the kingdom's history. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share Storylish English to continue writing this legendary journey together. Chapter 7, Blood Oath in the Darkness. A towering gray stone door stood before her. On its surface, cracked ancient runes, language of Saloon, etched a crescent moon-shaped indentation at the center. Cinderella placed her hand upon it. Immediately, her blood surged with heat, her heart pounding like ancient war drums. From her fingertips, light spread, aligning with the patterns on the door. The gate roared, stone cracked, dust billowed, and then it opened. Darkness. An immense, frigid space unfolded before her. No lights, no sound, no sense of time. Only a whisper echoed. You have arrived, centuries too late. Inside, a woman with hair as white as mist sat silently on a black stone throne. Her eyes were closed, lips murmuring forgotten incantations. Cinderella choked up. Mother? The woman's eyes opened. I am no longer the mother you knew. I am the keeper of the blood oath, she whispered. And you are the last with the right to choose. Cinderella trembled as she stepped closer. She raised her hand. From the darkness, a violet crystal box emerged, floating in midair. Inside lay a single black hair, the last remnant of the dark heart, the one who cursed this kingdom in ancient times. You can destroy it, end the bloodline of darkness forever. Or you can keep it and use the darkness to protect the light. But once you choose, there is no turning back. A choice. Not every princess is given one. Not every warrior dares to accept it. But Cinderella, the girl who once knelt on a cold kitchen floor, who lived under deception, who lost her mother, who awakened an entire kingdom, understood strength doesn't come from perfection, but from facing the darkness within oneself. She reached out, gently picked up the hair from the crystal box, closed her eyes, and placed it on her forehead. The entire chamber trembled. From the strand, darkness spread, but it did not consume her. Instead, it wrapped around her like a cloak, ominous, yet obedient. A voice echoed from deep within her mind. You have accepted me, but I will not weaken you. I will make you whole. Cinderella opened her eyes. Now they shone with the light of both worlds, moonlight and shadow. Her mother smiled, dissolving into thousands of luminous particles, swirling around her like the final guiding star. Cinderella stepped out of the darkness. Awaiting her was the entire kingdom, engulfed in flames. The final enemy had risen. The demon king of the night, once sealed deep underground by Saloon, now freed by remnants of ancient darkness. But this time, she was not just the girl with the glass slipper. She was the bearer of the blood oath. The choice had been made. Darkness was no longer the enemy, but a part of her new strength. In the next chapter, Fire and Shadow, the final battle. Cinderella will confront the Demon King, not with magic, but with wisdom, courage, and the heart of someone who has overcome herself. Did you think the fairy tale ended with a wedding? That was merely the prelude to a heroic saga. Continue with Storylish English to discover the final part, where light and darkness no longer oppose, but together write the legend of a Cinderella who made history. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this journey with those who believe in the power of choice. Chapter 8: Fire and Shadow, the Final Battle. Above the gray sky of the kingdom, a fiery red crack spread open, as if the heavens were being torn apart. From it, a monstrous form rose. The Demon King of the Night, a creature sealed away for millennia, now set free. Every step he took scorched the ground black. Every roar he let out reduced royal carriages to ashes. The once peaceful kingdom was now a daylight hell. Cinderella stood atop the wind tower. The cloak of darkness around her fluttered like a quiet flame. In her hands, no sword, no magic wand, only a will forged through loss, betrayal, and the light of true love. Do you think I'm just a little princess from a fairy tale? Cinderella said. No, I'm your ending. The Demon King laughed, a sound that made the skies tremble. You carry the darkness, and darkness belongs to me. But as he charged forward, a light burst from Cinderella's heart. Not pure light, but a union of shadow and moonlight. Their first clash exploded the southern plains. Sand flew like glassy rain. Time itself seemed to stop. The battle began. Cinderella moved like the wind, each step a dance between darkness and brilliance. She didn't defeat him with strength, but with balance. Every strike from the Demon King was blind rage. Every dodge she made was a lesson in patience and self-mastery. Mid-battle, visions from her past returned. A little girl crying in the attic, and mother turned to ashes under a shadow of power. A glass slipper lost on the palace staircase. They were no longer wounds. They were power. Cinderella delivered her final strike. Not through violence, but through a voice born from within the darkness. You don't need to destroy to exist. Darkness isn't the enemy, if it learns to bow and listen. The Demon King paused. In his blazing eyes, a moment of silence. He roared. He thrashed. But he didn't attack again. For the first time, he saw a reflection of himself in the eyes of someone unafraid. He faded to ash, not because he was destroyed, but because he was finally set free. The sky cleared. People poured into the streets. Grass grew over scorched earth. Church bells rang. And Cinderella didn't ascend a throne, didn't marry a prince, didn't throw a banquet. She quietly returned to the old basement kitchen, replanted the flowers her mother once sowed, and began writing her story again, in blood, tears, and hope. They say, There once was a girl who wore glass slippers. But then, she chose to go barefoot, to walk through fire, through shadow, through fear, and became a legend. If you think fairy tales are just for children, remember, every strong adult was once a child who refused to give up. Thank you for following Cinderella's journey. A new age epic reborn with heart and fire, here on Storylish English. Like, subscribe, and turn on the bell, so you don't miss the next powerful rebirth of legendary tales.